Good afternoon. Lovely to see everyone here this afternoon. I really appreciate the chance to join you this afternoon, and thank you for joining us. I'm Jessica Benoit. I'm one of our senior sustainability strategists with the Worldwide Strategist Organization at AWS. I am joined with Sri Anandavali from Magna International today, and we really do appreciate the opportunity to sit here and share a little bit about decarbonization and AWS and working with AWS to help you on your sustainability journey. So what we'll do today, in today's session, we'll talk about how industrial customers specifically are engaging with AWS on their sustainability journey. And more specifically, we will dive into some of the case studies that we've seen and really how AWS has worked with customers to not just better manage, monitor, and track carbon emissions, but also help establish better ways for their decarbonization pathway planning. How can we be able to see our baseline, and how can we build from it to drive better analytics, more data-driven decisions, and increasing our impact on how we are driving environmental change and progress. So sustainability has many definitions, and based on your industry or based on the customers you're serving, you're seeing different levels of materiality take place. And while subjective by definition, many of the key factors driving organizational or performance or profitability are impacted by sustainability. Things like customer demand or government regulations or employee demand even. You think of succession planning in the manufacturing workplace. Being able to comfortably, confidently, and accurately report on sustainable progress really helps drive impact in affecting all these areas. But we know that sustainability programs are really most successful when they're integrated with in-flight activities. Looking at business challenges and sustainability as not mutually exclusive, but more as sustainability being an accelerator to help drive and help accelerate business outcomes. Thinking of things like ESG reporting. So for example, companies that are looking at increased brand presence and looking to increase marketability or customer appeal, being able to effectively report and actually having auditable reporting mechanisms in place on sustainability do help increase brand value. Or when we're thinking about increasing efficiency, you're looking at operational or OEE, operational efficiencies across the plant floor, and being able to monitor and manage not just energy and resource like water consumption or waste management, but then translating that into sustainable impact. Being able to see that there are these dual efforts happening and being able to measure them in a way that can be traced, can be reported on, can be audited. That's really the maximizing the efforts through sustainable change in conjunction with business challenges. So with demand of environmental progress continuing to rise, organizations are transforming operating models. Incorporating sustainability and driving thought leadership are ways to address product design or sourcing and really just a ton of other things throughout the business. But working with customers, we often hear similar experiences. These are 5 of the most common that we hear from customers when it's about their sustainable journeys or what they're looking to help address. They're looking for ESG reporting or decarbonization pathway planning, resource efficiencies, supply chain transparency. That one's been coming up more and more, especially when you're thinking of automotive or thinking about material access. But working with customers, we're also hearing similar challenges. We're hearing that there's this incompatibility. We're struggling on having, the lack of confidence in access of the materials and being able to run them through our R&D. So you kind of have teams working independently, not having the appropriate visibility from procurement to process, or lack of standardization. There's so many hands touching the data, being able to centralize it or being able to have a single source of truth. Evolving requirements and regulations. That's changing every single day. I've been in environmental sustainability for 12 years, working with manufacturing groups for 18, and I can tell you the amount of times that regulations have changed at the city level, state level, federal level, global level, and constantly evolving. With its limited access to capital as well. More than ever, organizations are looking at sustainability reports and disclosures for impact investing, but also when you think of your shareholders and stakeholders, for investing or finding capital, CapEx, getting access to that, being able to translate that to sustainable improvement as well. And manual efforts, thinking of augmenting your current resources. You've got teams that are running Excel spreadsheets or pulling data together from varying elements, spending hours and hours to do monthly, quarterly, annual reports. What if those were automated? And so for us, working with AWS, you have the access to automated data reporting, ingestion and digestion, being able to bring it all together at the root of data, data being at the core of sustainability, and bringing it together and being able to have this flexibility, this adaptability, and being able to evolve with the market dynamics that we are seeing occur. That's really where we're seeing progress really be maximized. So carbon emissions from varying industrial activities and subsectors are characterized by a wide range of emission quantities, or depending upon the type of industrial process or technology used or what have you. Energy consumption has seen progress in the industrial space, definitely. But the production and growth and energy-intensive products are really where we see the opportunity sitting still. So in 2022, the International Energy Agency released a number of reports pertaining to the energy greenhouse gases, but particularly when we think of the CO2 emissions from energy combustion and industrial processes accounted for 89% of energy sector greenhouse gases. Noting that energy accounts for over 3/4 of global emissions, industrial processes and fuel combustion are up 70% since 2000. Now, this doesn't mean that we have to completely stop doing business, but it's having us rethink our operating models, as mentioned. How can we really take these heavy emitting industries or these hard to abate sectors, and how can we get better at getting visibility sooner, being able to drive actions faster, and being able to transform the ways in which our businesses have historically looked at addressing sustainability. So AWS looks at 3 different ways, or 2 different primary ways, but ultimately three ways, in supporting sustainability and collaborating with our customers and partners. You see on the left side there, that is migrating and optimizing. So moving to the cloud, being able to take advantage of cloud efficiencies and being able to move from on-prem into the cloud. And then you have optimizing your workloads instances, being able to have most efficient workloads, most efficient data sets that are optimized for the cloud. And then there's this transform bucket. So this transform bucket is somewhat new to a lot of groups. So transforming isn't necessarily focused around the green of IT, but how can we use the cloud as a mechanism, as a tool to help us accelerate our sustainable objectives and agenda beyond just the technology side? How can we use it to help us do better on water efficiencies or packaging, or being able to give visibility to our customers a little bit more around their packaging designs? Or how can we actually use that data to manufacture better, to be more efficient, to use less material, use less water? So we work with customers in a few ways. One of the ways that I've had the pleasure of working with customers like Shri is really first and foremost understanding the goals, the frameworks, the regulations. What are the businesses? What are your needs and requirements? What are your commitments? Where is your company focused? And then we look at our AWS toolbox here. What AWS services can we pair up to help translate between reporting frameworks? So being able to, if you're looking at CDP or TCFD reporting, or if you have certain emission factors or calculation, carbon accounting models, how can we leverage the AWS technologies and services that you may have within the cloud or you're looking at within your organization or enterprise, and being able to bring those two together? So the data that is being pulled in or being centralized through your lake, or if it's being pulled in through your data set, being able to process and translate it to the reporting setup, such as CDP. So when you're ingesting the data on the ingestion side, and being able to digest it and output and export it in compliance with your frameworks, your reporting frameworks. One way that we do that is working with our open data. So we have this open data sponsorship program, which hosts a variety of data sets that are optimized. We also have the Amazon Sustainability Data Initiative, being able to work with scientific organizations to bring in data sets such as weather data, weather trends, helping that which is also optimized for your instances. And then we have the AWS Data Exchange. So commercial data, if you have a subscription, EcoInvent, or any other subscriptions that might exist, being able to kind of bring it all together. So if you've ever worked on reports and had to pull from various elements, think of this as really a centralized repository or access we call marketplace. Being able to have instant access, saving yourself the research and being able to dig in and dive into all the data out there, it's right here. And being able to work with AWS services, pulling that in and being able to map that as well. We're pulling from those organizations, we're thinking of greenhouse gas protocol requirements or calculation methods, being able to translate the information based on the latest standards that are out there and released. That's what this open data really helps us do. So for sustainable enablement, we think of like traditional maturity models for industrial sustainability that are built upon the must, the regulatory requirements, and then looking at the market expectations. What's the need? What do we look at the efficiencies, following by leading and really driving a purpose-driven value add. It's an ongoing cycle, starting with access, creating visibility and being able to measure, monitor, report, but developing and then being able to leverage open data and developing that translative piece, being able to pull that information in, being able to digest and manage it and process it in a way that's going to suit based on your framework. Then deploying, being able to build on the communication barriers with central single source of truth for your teams, being able to create this two-way communication pathway for supplier data as well. So when you're thinking of asking your supplier for information, making sure it's able to come back in and build into your repository, build it into your lake and your data. And then expanding and innovating, taking that information and enhancing new ways to further drive more impact, to drive more efficiencies. And this kind of flywheel, as you see here, this circular model of continuing to assess, continuing to expand and deploy and then evaluate and measure, will end up driving more value, more ESG performance, and then you can incorporate those added components such as Industry 4.0 or lean practices to help drive that as well. So working in parallel, working in partnership with current practices you may already use today. So having the appropriate mechanisms is vital to being able to respond correctly and knowing your baseline. So one of the mechanisms that AWS has developed is the carbon footprint framework. And this is one of many ways in which we've worked with customers. So hearing carbon and decarbonization being top of mind, we really found this repeatable code under the carbon footprint framework. So effective decarbonization activities are really rooted at a strong data foundation, being able to collect and process and analyze all in one place, and reducing those silos. So we talked about having data coming from different areas and being able to pull it in. So successful, sustainable transformation with data begins with identifying where the organization is at and where they need to go and identifying the milestones in between. And that's what the carbon footprint framework was designed to do. First, we looked at measuring and reporting, being able to quantify emissions using a standardized approach, such as greenhouse gas protocol or ISO standards, then being able to map and audit-proof calculation models and data sources. We look at reporting, disclosing climate impacts to chosen sustainability frameworks. So as we mentioned earlier, understanding your organization's goals, what frameworks do you need to report into, and mapping that to make sure that it's processing and looking at it in the way in which you need to see it. Each AWS engagement involves customer and data discovery. So for carbon tracking and reporting, customers often express frustrations and challenges around like scope 3, for instance, which is growing more and more these days. You've got multiple supplier sources and these varying methodologies. So customers note that these traditional carbon footprint accounting has been this manual process. So again, being able to first baseline, first map the information, then quantify the information, and then being able to disclose it. That's our first step. And the second step was to monitor and visualize, being able to use current emission intensity baseline to set science-based targets, then being able to look at hotspots. Where are we seeing overuse? Where are we seeing more use than we should or had historically? And then benchmarking supplier performance. We think of visualization, so customized dashboard based on your user profile. If it's an auditor, if it's someone in your sustainability team, if it's somebody in your operating team, if it's even a stakeholder, somebody looking at an executive report, Being able to drill up and drill down and being able to visualize that baseline of information through these custom and report generation setups, all again for your reporting frameworks as well as for your user interface. Helping you identify those specific hotspots again, being able to see when it happens and where it happens, and seeing the trends that happen to kind of evolve over time. So scenario-based planning capabilities can give customers that heightened visibility, to drive more emission impact based on production planning and procurement. So we're now taking that information that we've baselined and trying to drive some more data-driven decisions behind it. How can we use this information to maybe have better production planning, maybe have better forecasting practices, maybe monitor and manage our inventory a little bit more? So we get into the manage aspect. Gathering data-driven insights, making those better informed decisions, and then enabling anomaly detection. So not just seeing hotspots, but then when you're seeing trends and you see deviations from trends, being able to have some flags in there through your dashboarding, or being able to have teams have alerts set up. Enhancing transparency and confidence in the data that's being kind of presented before you in the dashboard, and making sure that the right team member, based on the single centralized data source, is looking at the right information the way that which they need to see it. So I know this is very small. There's a lot of text on here, so we'll break this down here. This is a reference architecture of our carbon footprint framework. So starting with the data ingest, this framework features multiple ingestion points that file transfer, API polling, API post, IoT data, manual entry. This can also be at the supplier level. So if you have that two-way engagement and you've got your suppliers putting information in and trying to put their emissions or their materials or routes, what have you. Then we have the data processing. So at the point of data processing, it invokes the routing Lambda function. And this is either for batch processing and then updates the status in DynamoDB. From there, you're going to end up seeing the data storage and the configuration based on the definition of the front end of the discovery. So being able to store the data, process it, and having, depending whether it's time-based, if it needs to be stored and saved for a period of time, or disposed once processed. And then you've got the configuration, again, based on those frameworks we talked about. How does that data need to be formatted, processed, and exported? And on the output side, we do have the API connection on the outputs. So again, making sure that the web-based interface or the ability to pull this information from all that centralization or the central data in the DynamoDB, and then being able to pull it out and extract it for deeper analytics. You do have these alerts. So if it's CloudTrail or CloudWatch, having alerts and having security oversight as well. Or email alerts and triggers based on missing information or timestamps. So a couple customers that we've worked with for this. We have the agricultural carbon intensity and supply chain with Bayer. So for this one particularly, AWS Professional Services built the digital carbon footprint measurement solution. The carbon emissions data tracked from farmed corn to the processor, distributor, to the end product. So what they were seeking was that supply chain transparency in Scope 3. So being able to give visibility across the entire process or value chain was really the deliverable for us, to supply chain digital transparency for Scope 3 emissions. But what we learned was so much more. The ways in which groups interacted, how the value chain was interacting, the complexities around the value chain, different dynamics and different users. If they weren't Bayer or the groups that were involved, down to the farmer level. So you've got these different personas that needed to interact with the data and being able to get the information from them. So having that two-way engagement model set up. Climate Pledge Arena, so a large-scale venue and management reporting. So being able to, the industry standard carbon emissions reporting by arena, and then integrating multiple data sources, not readily available, things that really hadn't been done based on different human factors. So at the food and beverage level, for instance, or at valet parking, being able to quantify the emissions through these very unique kind of dynamics in an organization. So with this one, we had reporting on 24 sustainability KPIs through total carbon emissions, which included locally sourced food and beverage, and even parking and land use. Additional use cases that we work on or that we've seen specifically recently, chemical manufacturing, having transparency of Scope 3, the oil and gas industry, data centralization and creating decarbonization planning efforts. So again, baselining that information, creating visual cues or visual insights. And transportation, so emission reduction efforts and customer interface. So how can our customers take that information to help support their customers' needs and help their customers drive better decisions? So once the foundation's in place, we want to optimize more. We want to drive more impact, right? So you want to set those targets based on that data that's been acquired from the foundation. You want to identify ways to improve energy, and energy optimization is key. We stated earlier that the industrial sector consumes much more, 20% total carbon emissions, and we're seeing the increase of 70% since 2000. A lot of production, and production didn't slow down during the pandemic. Production increased, but you need to maintain the visibility of those mission-critical deliveries, but at the same time helping to drive energy efficiencies or efficiencies across your entire enterprise. So our team is building machine learning-based digital twins to provide optimum condition for running energy efficiency, assets such as HVAC, electrical, or lighting systems, even down to the production asset. Another area that our team is focused is around building forecasting models. So being able to use optimization for forecast planning, as well as for optimized production. So you're thinking of how much energy will I need based on my historical trends, or if I'm integrating multiple energy sources, and also how much should I be looking to purchase here for my financial and budgetary needs. But it's not only focused on brick and mortar metrics, it can be deployed at the asset level and within R&D. So when you're thinking of using digital twins to look at scenario-based planning, what if I used a bio-based material instead of a polystyrene in the production process? What if I tweaked my L/T technical parameters in my asset just a little bit more so I could run a little bit better and have less scrap? What would that look like? Being able to look at these kind of scenarios side by side and running better planning, better insights, and again, better efficiencies. So the use of AI and ML and advanced analytics for energy optimization and management has been used to address multiple use cases based on monitoring and, again, optimizing the equipment efficiency. But for us specifically, we're looking at those two, the forecast planning and the asset optimization based on set points. So the idea is to find the optimum level based on those set points that we would do during that data discovery with our customers and identify what is that pass-fail bucket. What are those parameters, and set those parameters to use an ML-based creation of those digital twins. So going back to that carbon footprint framework architecture, what you see here is basically that, except we added a little bit more. So being able to take more data like that weather data, maybe non-carbon data set, whether it's weather, market metrics, incorporating AI and ML to anticipate analytics for you, or removing the static multipliers. ML would look at fluid data sets, would look at trends over time, and being able to help create real-time condition considerations. And the back end, tweaking the model a bit, being able to toggle to deliver new pathways or new recommendations, being able to pump back that data back through CFF, or carbon footprint framework. Another way is to look at the architecture here, which is from our sustainable buildings and operations. And this is through HVAC. So what you're seeing here is if you've already got something set up, you've already got your foundation of information, your data already centralized outside of carbon footprint framework, it doesn't negate the fact of energy optimization. So being able to use indoor-outdoor temperature set points to delineate between when should the HVAC turn off or on based on temperature, what's the optimal temperature on the indoor conditions, what should our teams be looking, what's the comfort level really? And you can do the same at the asset level. At what point when I have the certain outputs, if my output has hit the production point, when can I switch over to the next tool, the next asset? You think of condition for the HVAC side on the indoor air. So when it chooses the energy, we talked about different energy integrations. So if you do have multi-energy sources, if you're looking at different grids or a multi-energy grid, being able to have the HVAC or that energy source kind of toggle based on the lowest energy use, certain times a day, certain types of energy being utilized, if it's on PV solar in the facility, or if it's in certain locations based on shifts, being able to, again, set those set points at a point of the discovery, and then being able to drive through the data. I got so excited I forgot to click through little boxes. So a few customer use cases that we've seen. So we have energy conservation and management through Carbon Lighthouse. So this was the ability to measure airflow, temperature, lighting levels, and using AI and ML to create dynamic models. We have the Carrier Global, so sustainable chill chain, and this is kind of my old bucket. So if you've worked in temperature control packaging, or if you worked in pharmaceuticals, you know that there are required visibility, but also you have to maintain control room temperature, frozen temperatures, or depending on refrigerated temperatures based on ASTM standards or ISTA standards. And having visibility and confidence start to end. So knowing that every transit point in your distribution, every shipment that you're having is controlled and maintaining the appropriate temperature so you feel confident that the material is there and that it's of quality that you need, helping save money and reducing the waste. Route optimization with machine learning. So finding the safest path, the most efficient path for energy use. We saw a customer that saved $40 million in fuel costs, reducing their carbon footprint by 50 million kilograms of CO2 in just the first year. And then you have energy consumption and anomaly detection. So being able to not only optimize it, but being able to see where they saw deviations, where there are trends, if they saw upticks of energy use in certain areas, whether it was geographic areas, facility levels, asset levels, and being able to right then and there drive action. So you're not seeing these energy leaks occur, being able to drive more efficient handling of it, and then getting back to delivery as well as on the mission critical delivery path of your products and services, but also being able to deliver on your consumption and energy usage. But I'm going to pause there because I think the real fun here is having Shri tell you the story. I would happily talk for hours. Trust me, she knows this too. But Shri is the highlight, and she's going to share a little bit more about her story and working with AWS and all the wonderful stories with Magna. So I'm going to hand it off to Shri here.
Thank you, Jessica. Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. Just quickly, my name is Shri Anandavalli. I'm the Senior Director at Magna International. I head the Smart Factory Solutions at Magna. Before I start, I would just like to give you a quick introduction into who Magna is and what we do. So who's Magna? Magna is the largest automotive supplier in North America, the third largest in the world. We have over $36.2 billion in sales as of 2021. And our core expertise is around full vehicle. We have powertrain, we have body-in-white structures, we have seating, exteriors, automotive driving systems, etc. Now, we have 341 manufacturing locations globally, and we are very globally situated across the world. We are the only major tier 1 supplier that actually have full vehicle that roll off our assembly lines. Then some of them to include are the Mercedes-Benz G-Class, the Jaguar I-Pace, and now we're feverishly working on launching the Fisker Ocean. This is what we call the power of Magna. We are a little different from our competitors in that we have these 9 focus areas or areas of expertise. We have deep product experience and know-how in all of these areas, such as seating, mirrors, body and chassis, powertrain, mechatronics, lighting, electronics, exteriors, and full vehicle. Now, the power of Magna is having the complete vehicle experience and system-level approach. And we understand how these systems interact with one another. And so hence, the value we bring is that we are able to optimize each of these from a system level as well. Now, pivoting back to what we are here for, sustainability. So let's talk about our journey in sustainability. Magna's sustainability vision is to create a better world of mobility responsibly for everyone. And we are making this difference in a couple of different ways. Magna's goal is to have carbon neutrality across all of our European divisions and operations by 2025. And carbon neutrality across all of our manufacturing locations by 2030. Pretty aggressive goal, and we're marching towards that. Now, where we stand today is we have about 14% of our global electricity consumption is renewable energy. 29 divisions actually consume renewable electricity today. 9 of our divisions are carbon neutral, and we have 5 divisions that is using on-site on-site solar generation. Where we are headed to by 2025 is we are expecting 35% of our divisions to be using renewable energy and electricity. More than 120 divisions by 2025 will be consuming renewable electricity as well by 2025. 110 divisions are expected to be carbon neutral by 2025. And more than 20 divisions are actually currently looking into installation of on-site solar generators. Now, we are approaching this from a three-pronged approach. That's product, process, and people. And that's how we're trying to push towards our initiative towards sustainability. Now, how is Magna handling sustainability? We're doing it 6 different ways. Starting out with process and product quality. Now, we are a manufacturer. We design, we engineer, we manufacture, and we deliver components. And we want to do it in a way that contributes towards common goals with our customers in terms of lightweighting, fuel efficiency, and low carbon emissions. The second approach is energy and efficiency of our assets and equipment. So that's looking at how do we improve our processes, our manufacturing processes, and make them more efficient and reduce carbon emissions. Thirdly, looking at our supply chain, working with our supply chain-based suppliers and making sure that we are addressing Scope 3 emissions. Building out a roadmap for how do we get to 100% renewable energy in the future. And lastly, but not the least, is our commitment to community. We want to be that partner that works with our community, especially in those communities where we have our employees living out of or working in, and we want to be there to make sure that from a health, from the safety and general well-being, we are being a partner in that community. As far as our developing the solution for sustainability goes, we wanted a partner who would understand our approach towards sustainability and would help us quickly develop a solution that we can quickly scale across our divisions, because you saw our aggressive timeline, right? For us, sustainability was no different from a smart factory solution. So our sustainability and smart factory, it's one and the same for us. And through AWS, and using AWS's expertise, we were able to develop a solution that we're currently scaling across our divisions. Now, let's talk about how did we really go about it and where we are in our journey. Now, within Magna, we looked at it in Scope 1, 2, and 3. Firstly, we said, let's address our Scope 1 and 2, which is in our control. We focused on 5 main resources that we consume on our shop floors: electricity, water, natural gas, argon, and compressed air. And we looked at this from an approach of smart factory or Industry 4.0. We sensorized our equipment, not just at the entry point of these resources into our facility, but we actually sensorized our equipment at the consumption point. And why did we do this? Is because we wanted to see and observe the granular detail of how resources were consumed by equipment type and equipment working condition. And we wanted to be able to consume that data to optimize our processes. Now, what we did is this first step was leverage our historical information, and we built out anomaly detection, which was basically saying, okay, my equipment is consuming too much energy or too much resources. Do I have a leakage? Or it's consuming too much energy. Do I have a maintenance issue? For us, both of them, the data was the same, but reflected 2 different scenarios. We also built out a forecasting model so that the leaders on our shop floor can consume that data and the forecasting models and the information based on seasonality to be able to decide how they want to purchase those renewable resources. Do they want to use renewable resources, or do they want to do something different? So they can actually plan accordingly. Now, through the visibility of this data that we got out of the solution, we not only addressed the leak, if there was any leak on our shop floor, it also fed into the fact that we were able to look at the resource per part produced. And we were able to go in and optimize our solutions better to improve from that front. But this is the same data that fed into predictive maintenance, downtime improvement, quality as well, right? So this is how we were able to consume the same data to improve our operations. Now let me quickly go over how we are moving forward, right? We're at a point where we have good visibility into our data across several shop floors. We are scaling the existing solution, but we wanted to take this forward. And this is what we have planned. What we're doing right now is we want to enter into scope 3. So what you saw previously was scope 1 and 2. In scope 3, we want to see how we can leverage our supplier base to understand what our incoming raw material comes in as far as carbon footprint goes. So just like any other manufacturer out there, we have raw material. It could be steel sheets, coils. It could be aluminum sheets, aluminum ingots for our casting. It could be resin polymers for our injection molding, purchase components. They all come with a carbon footprint of their own. We want to be able to work with our supply base to understand what is that carbon footprint, and then build on it as it goes through our process in our shop floor. So the idea here is, let's take an example of a press. We get steel aluminum or steel sheets or steel coils. Let's take the example of steel coils. They come in, and the first process may be a blanking process. We blank the coil, and there is energy that's consumed in the blanking process. And then it could go into the step 2, where it's actually going through a cold stamping process, wherein I have to consume energy. There's compressed air, et cetera, that's being used to form the part. The same blank could go through another process for another part, where it's going into a hydroforming process, where it's actually not just energy, but there's water consumption as well. Or there could be a hot stamping process, where now there is, in addition to electricity, water, I also have natural gas. So depending on the process, we want to follow the part and build out that process from a component level into the subassembly and then final assembly. In essence, what we want to try and do is build out the carbon footprint per part we produce. That is, what is the carbon footprint of the finished part that leaves our docks? That is what we are trying to do. Now, this is looking at the entire process chain, from the point of it getting into our, reaching our docks to the final product leaving our docks. We want to be able to track product level energy, carbon footprint throughout. What we also want to do is start looking at benchmarking our own assets, equipment types globally, and understand what is the energy and the carbon footprint intensity and usage when we compare equipment type globally, and what are the regional influences. So we want to study those trends, be able to identify hotspots, and the product, the emission profiles. We want to build that out for most of our products within Magna. And this is what we're currently working towards and building out with the AWS ProServe team as our technical expert. And this is what we're marching forward to. At this point, there's a lot of work that's going into it. There's a lot of resources, and there's a lot of information that we seek to build out the solution. It's not easy to track your parts through your process, your manufacturing process, especially being a supplier, where we are dealing with different OEMs and different processes. It isn't easy, but nonetheless, it's a journey that we still want to embark on. And ultimately, before I hand it off back to Jessica, for Magna, this is the beginning of our journey. We're constantly finding new ways to accelerate our sustainable objectives and goals and ambitions. And we want to develop a scalable solution globally is not easy. It's very challenging, especially when you want to try and scale that solution globally. Very challenging problem. But nonetheless, we want to still drive it. We want to inspire our employees, inspire people around us, our communities, and also the industry in general. Thank you so much. I appreciate this opportunity to share Magna's journey with each and every one of you. With that, I'm going to hand it over to Jessica, because she can help you start your journey if you haven't started one. Thank you.
Thank you, Shri, so much. So Shri and I actually got to meet in person for the first time yesterday, and I am just continuously impressed by her background and her breadth of knowledge. And I think one thing she and I were laughing about is that we love the change. And I know that change is difficult for a lot of industries to kind of adapt. And I think that when you look at manufacturing and industrial particularly, they've worked on processes that have been relatively efficient for decades, 10, 20, 30, 40 years, and coming in and looking to shift it and change it can be a little nerve-wracking. We love it. We may be, alone in that stating that, but it is something that we continuously see. And I think with AWS, the one thing that we really are focused on working and collaborating with our customers and our partner community is how can we help kind of take that stress out and put that confidence back into this change and this evolving dynamic, helping equip organizations to address these evolving dynamics in the market, help equip them to be more sustainable, no pun intended, for their business going forward as well, and really accelerate that journey, but also help simplify it. So one of Amazon's leadership principles is really to think big. So we bring the relevant stakeholders from both sides to kind of co-create this vision. The way we get started is we want to challenge ourselves to think big of not just what you're trying to do in the immediate, but what's that aspirational goal? What do you want where do you want to be in your sustainability journey? Is it to be net zero? Is it to be zero waste? Are we trying to get certified? Are you looking to completely redefine your industry or completely change your product design process? That's the real fun part about what we are doing today is being creative and innovative. How can we leverage this data to accelerate those initiatives? And we have these multiple solutions that have been piloted with customers across various industries, and being able to kind of take those learnings and apply them in our future engagements and being able to help continue to build upon that. So again, increasing our efficiencies and identifying areas that can be repeatable to help our customers move faster and scale faster, and maintaining the compliance or maintaining the auditability for this dynamics that we're seeing. Maybe you report on 15 frameworks, maybe you report on one. So again, keeping that kind of agility in what we're building and what we're co-creating with our customers and partners. So this is how we really start the conversations. It's not fully exhaustive of the process at hand, but we really want to first and foremost understand your strategy, understand what you're trying to achieve. You may not have that fully baked yet. It may be something that is in process, but really, where do we want to go? And then being able to define the goals and teams of, let's break that down. Let's think big and start small. Let's look at these challenges or milestones that we can map out. What are the ways in which we can help accelerate to get there? And then implementing and optimizing. So who is going to participate in those discussions? Which team members do we want to engage? Making sure that we're looking at not just the ESG teams, not just the data teams, but the teams and all stakeholders and the execution teams that are a part of the organization and the projects at hand. And then looking at to automate and report. So as we are building and working with our collaborators, our partners, our customers, as we're doing the proof of concepts, the proof of values, being able to automate the reporting, being able to initiate that outreach and further data collection and consolidation so we can continue the scaling process. Working with the IT business leads, the sustainability leads on both sides, and then working with our integration partners and sustainability practitioners. These are kind of the mechanisms that we deploy to help kind of support this entire journey. But during any of our workshops and discovery sessions, we identify these larger impact areas. So this is where we can have, where decarbonization may be the most significant, but there might be additional or ancillary opportunities, adjacent opportunities in your operations path. Maybe you're feeling a little more pressure in the product side and services. There's often overlap that we're seeing in these conversations. So as we start, maybe the focus on the most common, which can be the decarbonization pathway or managing and monitoring your carbon emissions, where can that data, as Shri was mentioning, being able to look at these in-flight initiatives that you have and being able to pull this data and processing and translating it in a way that will apply for your operations or for your supply chain and distribution. How can this single source of truth be applied and continue to be built upon where you're not going to be pulling separate data just for sustainability, but you're pulling it from data that you may already look at or that you're looking to centralize through efforts working with AWS. Digital transformation and sustainable business practices do go hand in hand. We mentioned earlier that they're not mutually exclusive, they're not independent of one another. Being able to use sustainability as an accelerator for some of the business challenges is really key to maximizing results. Cloud computing and big data technologies are redefining business models and operating models, and we're continuing to see these heightened security, support, maintenance, and innovative approaches to deliver sustainability through digitalization. So successful decarbonization efforts, both upstream and downstream, will incorporate effective collaboration efforts across that two-way communication cycle that we mentioned, and having that increased transparency and auditability mechanisms in place. So whether you're being audited from the certification organizations or your internal teams are maintaining oversight for your metrics and benchmarks. So as we walk out of here today, what we would like to invite everyone to do is kind of talk to your teams, understand and internally align on your organization's business case. Do you have multiple business cases? Do you have a strategy defined? Do you have goals and ambitions or frameworks? Or are you hearing things from your sales departments, marketing departments? Are you seeing big quality shifts and changes? Are you seeing struggles on delivery or material access? And I go to material access because, again, that was in a prior life. So, is this whole new dynamic of alternative materials, is that something that you're looking to have your business kind of adapt more to? And then assess and prioritize those. What is most impacting in the short term, long term? What are you looking at, and where are you primarily focused? What are the priorities that your team has assessed? Or maybe you need some help talking through that. Commit to collaborating, get those key stakeholders in, get them engaged, and then reach out to your account teams. Your account team members will talk to groups like us and the Worldwide Sustainability Strategist Group, and we'll understand a little bit more to unpack, to dive deeper on what are those challenges, what data is there, what resources are there, and how we can help augment those resources and practices through solutions that you saw today, such as energy optimization and carbon footprint framework. For more information, there are the QR codes up here, so feel free to click in for more of the AWS sustainability, some use cases that we have, or more about the data exchange and the open data, just to see maybe you have subscriptions already, is that in there, or are there weather trends and data that would benefit from some of the things that you're working on today, or that can be a conversation that we'd have with your account teams. But to learn a little bit more, feel free to click. And I can go back to if anybody didn't get a chance to scan their QR code. But as you also leave and enjoy the rest of this week, there are a ton of sessions. There are so many sustainability sessions. We know that the interest in sustainability and environmental impact is continuing to grow. We know that every industry is faced with addressing or being able to accomplish sustainable reporting. So there are a ton of sessions, a ton of activities. I urge you all to check them out. There's another page too, just in case, because we've got so many. Check them out and hear from other groups as well, not just myself and Shri. There are plenty of groups that can share their stories and use cases. And if there are any questions, happy to take them. And definitely invite you to telling us how we did today through your survey. Thank you so much.